Hello, I'm delighted to be here to celebrate the launch of NCRM. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about research methods from a funder's perspective. I'll start by saying a little bit about the context to this, so why ESRC cares about research methods and the way in which we've thought about this previously. So those of you from the UK will hopefully be aware that ESRC, the Economic and Social Research Council, is one of a number of research councils that sit under an umbrella body called UK Research and Innovation. And ESRC invests well over £180 million a year into social science research and training within the UK. The context for us in terms of research methods is very simple. It's that methodological excellence underpins robust, impactful, high quality social science. And for that reason, research methods are a cornerstone of what we do. And that's illustrated very clearly in our delivery plan, which we published a couple of years ago. The way in which we have thought about and funded this in the past can be divided into two sort of broad categories. So the first is money that's been spent specifically on funding for methods work, so funding to encourage methodological innovation and development. Sometimes that's taken the form of specific research calls aimed at methods. So all of the little pictures you can see on the right-hand side of the screen are examples of very specific methodological experiments that we funded through a call a couple of years ago. But it's important to acknowledge that we also routinely are funding methodological experimentation and development through our other grants as well. Many of our large grants and many of our centres are routinely having to grapple with methods related and relevant issues. So it's not just all being funded through a specific methods lens. The second way in which we think about methods is really by reflecting on the training and capacity building needs within the community. So here, a lot of thought in the past about how can we provide training and support for people at different stages in their research careers. And that's where organisations like NCRM are so important. But then increasingly, we're also really thinking about what are the research methods skills requirements at that very early stage in someone's career. And so what does that mean in terms of thinking about PhD training and training for early career researchers? Then in terms of thinking about where we go next, a couple of observations, if you like, about that really help shape our thinking. So the first one is pretty obvious. It's that many of the major social challenges that face us now need research that's interdisciplinary, and that involves other sectors beyond academia. So if you think about, the big challenge of our time, coronavirus is one example, climate change would be another one. Neither of those are issues that are ever going to be addressed by a single set of disciplines. They require interdisciplinary research. And so that is one lens through which we've really thought about our research methods portfolio. The second is the very, again, equally obvious point that research methods need to evolve, they need to change. And in particular, they need to keep pace with technological development, both in data production and in analytics. So this might mean thinking about what those developments mean in terms of research design, in terms of how you think about research quality, as well as how you think about the kinds of data that might be available and how one analyses it. So what does that mean now in terms of how we're thinking about research methods in the future? One really key area obviously relates to thinking about new partnerships and research opportunities. And so a few things to flag here for you. Firstly, given that we're here to celebrate the launch of NCRM, to really signal their absolutely vital role in coordinating investment in research methods training and really helping ESRC think about what it does here. We're really looking forward to NCRM helping develop a training program that fills in some very key strategic gaps, and in thinking about what good practice looks like and how one can identify and implement and share it. We've also got specific funding pots set aside for funding research methods development. So some of you will be aware of the research methods development grant call that closed I think just a few weeks ago now. Fantastic response to it, and we certainly have flagged that we will be carrying out another call along these lines in the future. Probably the key point to make about that specific call is that it was very much designed after reflecting on the point I made earlier about that need to grapple with how one thinks about research methods from an interdisciplinary perspective. So that was one of the really key highlights in that call. And then finally, there is certainly potential for further methods calls or training and support calls that will focus on specific needs where we have identified them. So many of you will be familiar with some of the additional support that we've given to trying to boost quantitative skills. We're just starting off a piece of work now thinking about skills in relation to data-driven research. And so that is probably another area where we're going to be investing more in the future. And then the final area I wanted to flag was just thinking about new forms of data and improved data resources. So there is ongoing work within ESRC to reflecting on what I think is broadly referred to as new forms of data, new and emerging forms of data. So data that comes out of transactional information held by commercial companies, social media data, the Internet of Things, etc., etc. Huge potential, but also a lot of challenges about how can people safely access that kind of data? What are the pros and cons of using it? How does it compare with other forms of data? So that's an area where we are still scoping out what we hope could be a major investment in this space. And it will very much learn from the second bullet point down, ADR UK, which is Administrative Data Research UK. That is a major investment in ESRC, of ESRC, that has been very successful in cracking some of the challenges of how do you facilitate safe access by academics to data collected by government, by public services through their daily engagement with citizens. Huge potential there to really crack some important questions, but also a number of challenges from the research methods front as well. So that's another area where there's a lot of work doing of immediate relevance to research methods. And then finally, I just wanted to flag, and again, I suppose this picks up on the point I made earlier, that we're trying not to just think of research methods through that single research methods lens. It's something that's going on all the time. So the ESRC funds some fantastic longitudinal studies. They're having to grapple with these issues all the time, as are many of the other data investments that we make. So that is where I wanted to finish. On a personal note, I suppose I just wanted to reflect on my own career and just how incredibly embedded thinking about research methods has been throughout that. So I started in my research career more years ago than I care to remember, but at a time when the big methodological development was the move from paper-based interviewing to computer-assisted interviewing. And that, as I'm sure you can imagine, threw up a whole range of methodological challenges and opportunities. And more recently, I've been very involved in sort of working with longitudinal studies in particular and thinking about how can they benefit from new data collection opportunities without jettisoning the value of the data they collect then and how that compares with what they've done in the past. So I hope that illustrates that I'm certainly very aware of the importance of research methods to everything that the ESRC does. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I see it really as the cornerstone of the high quality, impactful social science that we fund. Thank you.